My son tossed a $15 check at me and laughed under his breath. The kind of laugh people use when they think they've already won. He stood there in that glass-walled conference room in downtown Chicago, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent, and he said, "That's your bus fare home, Dad." He didn't whisper it. He said it loud enough for everyone to hear. Loud enough for the assistants outside the door to look away. Loud enough so the memory would cling to me like cold smoke. If you're here with me right now, check. If you're subscribed. Because what happened in that room wasn't humiliation. It was the moment everything flipped. I had flown in from Asheville that morning, still smelling of pine dust from my workshop. I build things now, small tables, keepsake boxes, rocking chairs, simple pieces that don't pretend to be more than they are. My life has been pared down to wood, quiet routines, and the steady rhythm of tools. It's not much, but after everything I've carried, it's honest. Honest enough that I can breathe in it. Honest enough that I don't have to explain myself to anyone. I'm 58. My hands are calloused. My back reminds me every morning that time has its own opinions. I live alone on the edge of a long gravel road, in a house I fixed myself, and in all those quiet mornings, in all those years of sanding edges and wiping down surfaces, I never expected to be summoned again by the family that cut me out of their lives. But then the phone rang. Harrington and Price LLP, one of those law firms with marble lobbies and elevators that move without sound, and they asked me to be present for the reading of my ex-wife's will. Cassandra Monroe, founder of Monroe Atelier, $160 million in assets, and the woman who, one decision at a time, erased me from our son's mind. Logan didn't bother to greet me when I walked into the lobby. He just looked me up and down. In that way, people look at something they think they've outgrown. Standing beside him was his financial advisor, and a woman I didn't recognize, someone polished, someone there to witness his triumph. It was all theater to him. I wasn't invited as family. I was invited as entertainment. But the moment I sat down at that long walnut table, something subtle shifted. Harrison, the family lawyer, kept glancing at me, as if I was the one he needed to speak to, not Logan, not the advisor, me. And that unsettled my son more than anything. His heel tapped against the floor. His jaw tightened. He folded his arms like a teenager, cornered by a truth he didn't want. I tried to steady myself. I hadn't seen Cassandra for nearly a decade. Our lives had split apart long before the divorce papers, long before the headlines, long before the story everyone believed about me became the one I had to live with. She died last month peacefully, they said, in her sleep. Complications, age, stress. It looked clean on paper. But nothing about Cassandra's life had ever been clean. I kept thinking about the woman I once knew. The sharp mind, the restless ambition, the way she could walk into a room and make everyone feel like they needed her approval. And yet, somewhere beneath the layers of iron and elegance, there had been the person I loved, the person I built a home with, the person I protected, the person I shielded until it broke me. The lawyer cleared his throat. A soft sound, but it cut through everything. "We'll begin," he said, not looking at Logan, looking at me. My son leaned back, a smugness radiating off him. He thought he knew how this would go. Cassandra's fortune to him, to the company, to the life she believed he inherited. Nothing at all left for me. He had rehearsed his victory in his head, but I felt something different in the air. Something uneven. Something that didn't fit the script. Maybe it was the way Harrison shuffled the papers. Slow, careful. Maybe it was the envelope, with the red seal placed at the very end of the stack. Or maybe it was the simple fact that Cassandra, with all her precision, would never have fought so hard to keep her secrets if she intended to die with them. Logan noticed it too. His foot stopped tapping. "Can we get this over with?" he said. "Some of us have flights." I looked out the window. The city felt too sharp, too metallic, a world I no longer recognized. I missed the scent of cedar in my shop, the crackling stove, the way mornings used to feel when no one expected anything from me. But then the lawyer began reading, and every memory quieted, replaced by a tension that pulled the air tight. Cassandra's words were clinical at first, the kind of language you hear in corporate wills, distribution of shares, property transfers, charitable bequests. But then, slowly, something shifted. A note in her voice written, but unmistakably. Hers began to tremble through the page. And that was when I heard it. My name. Not in passing. Not as an afterthought. But tied to a request. A directive. A condition. She wanted me there. Not Logan. Not the company. Me. Logan tensed so hard, the leather chair creaked. Why the hell would she mention him? He snapped. But the lawyer kept reading. And every word pressed against the shell of the story Logan had lived his whole life. The story that painted me as a failure. The story that made Cassandra a victim of my mistakes. The story that shaped Logan into someone who believed he was entitled to her entire world. And beneath those words, I felt it. The first tremor. The first crack in the mask Cassandra left behind. A realization rose in me slowly, the way distant thunder rolls toward you. If Cassandra had written my name into her final instructions, if she had demanded my presence, if she had placed that sealed envelope on the table before she died, then the story Logan believed, the story he used to justify his cruelty, was about to fracture. I leaned forward slightly, not because I expected anything, not because I wanted her money, but because something old in me, something wounded, something silenced, stirred awake. And in that moment, as the paper trembled in Harrison's hands, I knew, whatever Cassandra left behind wasn't meant to reward me. It was meant to reveal something bigger, something she had carried for decades, something she couldn't say while alive. The lawyer lifted the sealed envelope. "Mr. Cole," he said quietly, "this part is addressed only to you." The room froze. Logan's voice cracked with disbelief. And my breath, for the first time in years, did too. I held that sealed envelope like it might burn straight through my hands. The room felt smaller, the air squeezing in as if someone had shut a door I hadn't noticed. Harrison laid his glasses on the table and pushed the envelope toward me with both hands, the way someone places an heirloom into the care of its rightful owner. Logan lunged forward, anger rising in him like a flash fire. "You're kidding," he said. "There's no way she meant that for him. She hated him. She wanted nothing to do with him. This is some mistake. Open it. Let's see what she thought he deserved." But I didn't move. Something about that envelope, something about the neat, precise handwriting spelling my name, it felt heavier than paper should ever feel. It wasn't money. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't anything a person hungry for inheritance could use. It was truth. And truth has a weight all its own. I slid my thumb under the seal. Slow, careful, like the paper might crumble. Logan leaned in so close, he cast a shadow across the table. And then, before I even opened it, before the flap lifted, before the first word revealed itself, I felt something shift deep inside me. Something old, something I'd buried to survive. I pulled out a single sheet, folded once, no rings, no fancy watermarks, just Cassandra's handwriting and a faint scent of her perfume gardenia, the only soft thing she ever allowed herself. My hands shook once. A small tremor I hoped no one noticed, but Harrison did. His expression softened, respectfully, the way a man watches another man come face to face with a ghost. I unfolded the page. "Ethan," it began, "if you're reading this, then I am no longer able to speak the truth myself." My breath caught. Logan's scoff sliced the air. "She's manipulating you from the grave. Don't fall for this." But the letter continued, and every line pulled a thread loose inside me. I built my life on ambition. I built my company on survival. But the price of survival can become a debt no one sees, except the person who pays it. My chest tightened. My throat grew raw. I kept reading. "You protected me when the world closed in, and I let the world believe the wrong story. I am leaving the key, because I could not carry this alone anymore." The key. The one Harrison slid across the table earlier. The brass key that didn't fit the watch safe Logan had drilled open after Cassandra's funeral. "What key?" Logan snapped. "Key to what?" She didn't even own a safe, except the one I already opened. But he was wrong. Cassandra had always been a woman who held two versions of everything public and private. It made sense she'd have a place to hide the parts of her life Even Logan was never meant to see. I kept reading. There is more. Harrison knows where to take you. You will not be alone. I looked up at Harrison, and he nodded once. Steady. Unshaken. Logan's face reddened. This is absurd. None of this means anything. She was confused. She wasn't thinking straight at the end. Harrison slid a second document across the table. A notarized medical evaluation. Clean. Clear. Dated only 3 months before her death. Mrs. Monroe was fully competent, Harrison said. This letter is valid. Her instructions stand. The floor dropped out from under Logan's certainty. His jaw trembled. And for the first time since I'd entered the room, he looked unsure. A crack in the armor he'd worn since he was a boy. A crack Cassandra created by accident, or maybe by design. I folded the letter and slid it back into the envelope. I needed air. I needed time. I needed the truth to stop shaking inside me. But time wasn't something Logan wanted me to have. You don't get to walk out with that, he snarled. She didn't trust you. She never trusted you. She left everything to me because she knew what you are. I looked at him slowly. The way a man looks at someone he once carried on his shoulders. Someone he once built tree houses for. Someone he once peeled apples for when he was afraid of the knife. You think you know, I said quietly. But you don't know anything. The silence after that wasn't peaceful. It was sharp, cutting, dangerous, in the way only truth can be. Harrison cleared his throat gently. Mr. Cole, he said, there's more you should see. Your presence today wasn't optional. He reached into his briefcase and withdrew a slim file. Brown, unmarked, bound with a simple clip. I've held this for 2 years, he said. I was instructed to deliver it only after Mrs. Monroe's passing, and only if you appeared in person. 2 years. My heart thudded once, hard. 2 years meant Cassandra knew her time was limited. 2 years meant she had prepared for this moment long before her final days. Logan reached for the file, but Harrison pulled it back. It's not yours, he said firmly. Your name isn't on it. Logan stared at him, disbelief turning into something uglier. He clenched his fists. His breath came fast. His voice cracked. You're choosing him over me? You've known me since I was 8. I'm following the law, Harrison replied. And your mother's wishes. Logan slammed his fist on the table. The sound echoed through the conference room, bouncing off marble and glass like a warning shot. The assistants outside froze. The advisor muttered something and stepped back. Nobody wanted to be too close to a man watching his inheritance slip out of his grasp. But I wasn't thinking about inheritance. I wasn't thinking about money. I wasn't thinking about fortune or empires or the glittering world Cassandra built. I was thinking about the night everything fell apart. The night Cassandra came to me, shaking, desperate, terrified of what her business partners were planning. The night she begged me for help. The night I put my name on documents I didn't understand, trusting she would never let me drown for her mistakes. But she did. Or maybe she thought she had to. The guilt in her letter suggested something different, something more complicated. Something that had haunted her for years. I took the file from Harrison's hands. It felt heavier than it should. Heavier than paper. Heavier than memory. Heavier than the years I'd lost. And in that moment, right as Logan took a trembling step toward me, something inside me whispered, this isn't humiliation. This is the beginning. I tucked the envelope into my coat. And for the first time in a long time, I stood up. The hallway outside Harrison's conference room felt colder than I remembered. Maybe it was the air conditioning. Or maybe it was the way the truth made everything sharper. I held the brown file against my chest. The envelope with Cassandra's letter tucked safely in my coat. Logan stormed out behind me, breathing hard through his nose, trying to swallow his panic before it showed. I didn't give him the satisfaction of looking back. Harrison walked beside me at a steady, calm pace, as though guiding a man through a corridor of a courthouse. His shoes made soft, deliberate sounds against the polished floor. Mine were quieter, worn leather that had seen more winters than they deserved. When the elevator doors slid open, he gestured for me to enter first. Logan lingered outside the elevator, fists clenched, jaw twitching. A boy trapped inside a man's body, unwilling to accept a world where things weren't handed to him. You don't know what's coming, he spat. That file won't change anything. She never wanted you in her life. Not then. Not now. I stepped in. He didn't. The doors slid shut, cutting him off mid-breath. As the elevator descended, Harrison folded his hands neatly in front of him and exhaled slowly, as if bracing for something. There are things in that file, he said without looking at me, that will answer questions you've carried for a long time. But the answers come with weight. I've carried worse, I murmured. Not like this. The elevator bell chimed. The doors opened to the marble lobby. A pair of assistants avoided my eyes. People moved through the building, completely unaware of the earthquake that had just split a family in 2 stories above their heads. Harrison and I stepped through the revolving doors into the late afternoon chill. Toronto, in early October, has a particular kind of cold, not biting, not harsh, but honest. The kind that hints at winter and reminds you time is always moving. Against the curb, a black sedan waited. Harrison nodded toward it. "I'll ride with you," he said. "You shouldn't open that file alone." I didn't argue. Not because I was afraid, but because something inside me already sensed what I was about to read would alter everything I thought I knew about the past 20 years. We got in. The city blurred past as the driver merged into traffic. Harrison waited until the buildings thinned, until the highway opened in a quiet stretch along the lake. "Ethan," he said, breaking the silence, "I wasn't always Cassandra's lawyer. You should know that." I turned to him, surprised. "She hired me after everything with the company. After the incident. She didn't trust easily after that. She trusted even less as the years went on. But she trusted you more than you think, even at the end." I felt a pressure build behind my ribs. Not pride. Not anger. Something raw. Guilt. Grief. Unfinished things. Why didn't she tell him? I asked quietly. Why didn't she set him straight before she died? Harrison looked out at the lake, the waves tapping the rocks like quiet knuckles. "She wanted to spare him from the truth," he said. "At least while she was alive. She was afraid he would never recover from knowing she lied to him. That she let him hate a man who didn't deserve it. He hates me anyway. He hates the version of you she allowed to exist." The car slowed as we pulled into a quiet parking lot near the harbor, far from the noise of downtown. The driver stepped out and waited by the hood. Harrison turned to me. "Open it," he said softly. I hesitated. Not because I lacked courage, but because a man only gets one chance to unlearn the lies he has built his life on. I unlatched the clip. The first page was grainy photocopied bank correspondence. Wire transfers. Amounts I had not seen in 2 decades. All bearing my signature. Not Cassandra's. Mine. My chest tightened. "I never saw these documents again after the investigation," I whispered. "They were seized. Locked away. Cassandra got them back," Harrison said. "Years later. She spent a fortune retrieving every document the government no longer needed. She kept them hidden in a personal safe, the safe the key in her letter opens." I flipped through the file. Invoices. Emails. Blueprints, bearing my architectural seal. Corporate diagrams with my name placed at every pressure point. Documents that would have exonerated me, had anyone cared to look deeper. I turned another page and froze. It wasn't a financial record. It wasn't a contract. It wasn't anything official. It was a letter, written in Cassandra's handwriting, but never mailed. Addressed to me. Dated only 2 months after the scandal. I swallowed. "Dear Ethan, I don't know how to face what I've done." The words blurred for a moment. I blinked hard and kept reading. "You told me to let the investigators blame you. You told me it was better this way. I tried. I really tried. But every day since, I've asked myself what kind of woman lets someone carry the weight of her salvation alone." My breath hitched. Harrison looked away respectfully. I kept going. "Logan needs me. He listens to me. He believes me. I should tell him the truth, but I am afraid he will never forgive me if he knows what I cost you, what I allowed, what I ran from. One day I will find the courage to make this right. If not in life, then somehow, in death." My vision blurred again, and this time, I couldn't steady it. The letter ended abruptly. No signature. As if she couldn't bring herself to finish it. A tremor ran through me, small, but enough that I had to close the file for a moment. The wind outside rustled across the hood of the car. A gull cried somewhere near the water. The world kept moving, while mine stayed perfectly still. Harrison spoke quietly. She planned to tell you everything. She planned to tell him too. But her health declined faster than she expected. The confession she left today wasn't spontaneous, it was 20 years in the making. 20 years. 20 years of silence. 20 years of carrying a weight I thought was punishment, but was sacrifice. And then, a cold, sharp thought cut through the fog. Logan won't accept any of this, I said. He'll fight it, deny it, twist it. This will only make him angrier. Harrison nodded, his expression grave. That's why there's something else in the safe. Something she didn't trust me with. Something she left only for you. My heartbeat thudded hard, slow, deliberate. What is it? I don't know, he said. But whatever it is, she believed it was the only way to protect you from what Logan might do next. A chill ran up my spine, not from the cold, from knowing that Cassandra, even while dying, had been preparing for a storm she knew was coming. A storm named Logan. I held the file tighter, and something inside me, something long dormant, began to rise. Resolve. We weren't done. Not even close. Night settled over Toronto, with the kind of quiet that feels staged, too still, too expectant, like the city itself was holding its breath. Harrison dropped me off outside Cassandra's penthouse, the building standing tall above the harbor, like a monument carved out of steel and old money. I hadn't stepped foot in this place for nearly 2 decades. Now I had a key in my pocket, and a file of truths I'd spent half my life trying to forget. I swiped through security, rode the private elevator up 34 floors, and stepped into a silence so absolute it felt rehearsed. Everything was preserved, exactly the way Cassandra liked it. Minimalist lines, pristine surfaces, cold elegance softened only by the faint scent of gardenia candles she'd always kept burning. I closed the door behind me, and the loneliness hit like a physical thing. This wasn't a home. It never had been. It was a stage she'd performed on until her final breath. I walked down the hallway until I reached her private study, the room she always kept locked when we were married. Back then, I thought it was where she kept proprietary designs and confidential contracts. Now, with the letter in my coat and the weight of the truth heavy in my chest, I wondered if it was where she hid the parts of her she never wanted anyone to see. The room was dim. One lamp stood in the corner. A single painting hung above the desk, a landscape of Lake Louise in winter. Pale blues and violent whites swirling together, like memory and regret. Some part of me already knew. I lifted the painting gently, just enough to see the wall behind it. There it was. A small steel safe, older than the building, painted to match the wall. Not the watch safe Logan had drilled open. This one was untouched. The brass key turned with a soft metallic click. My heart thudded once loud, hollow, like a warning. Inside, stacked neatly, were 4 items. 1. A leather-bound journal. 2. A sealed USB drive. 3. A folder labeled, Private, Do Not Destroy. 4. A second letter addressed to me only by my first name. My breath tightened. This wasn't for lawyers. This wasn't for Logan. This was Cassandra, unfiltered, unshielded, unperformed. I reached for the journal first. The leather was worn at the edges as if she'd held it often. I flipped the cover open. Her handwriting filled the first page. If you're reading this, Ethan, then I am truly gone. And I need you to understand everything. I was too weak to tell you while we were alive. My stomach knotted. I sat down slowly. And I read. The truth came out in layers, raw, unvarnished. She detailed the collapse of her company all those years ago. How she had been cornered by investors she couldn't escape. How the laundering scheme was presented as her only lifeline. How she'd fallen apart. And how I had stepped in. Her words cut deep but gentle, like a confession whispered in the dark. I let you save me. And when you needed me, I hid behind you. I let the world believe the lie that destroyed you, because I was afraid to face the truth that destroyed me. I closed the journal, my hands trembling. I wasn't ready for more. Not yet. I picked up the USB drive next. Harrison had warned me there would be evidence. The hard kind. The kind people couldn't argue with or twist. I connected it to Cassandra's laptop. A folder popped open immediately. Inside were dozens of subfolders sorted by date, meeting recordings, financial spreadsheets, email chains, phone call transcripts, photographs of contracts, scans of forged documents the investigators never found. The kind of evidence that could turn a courtroom inside out. And then, a video file. I clicked it. My breath froze. Cassandra appeared on the screen. Weak, pale, sitting in a hospital bed, with tubes in her arms. But her eyes, God, her eyes were clear. She looked straight into the camera and spoke with the calm of someone who had stopped running. "This is for my son," she said softly, "and for the man he hates for all the wrong reasons." I leaned forward, unable to blink. "I lied," she whispered. "I let him believe the worst because it was easier than admitting I had broken the person who deserved my loyalty most." She inhaled, the oxygen tube brushing her cheek. "I know Logan. He won't accept the truth unless he sees it, unless he hears it from me. And even then, he might not forgive it. But maybe he'll finally stop blaming the wrong person." Her voice grew weaker. "All of this, every document, every recording, I'm leaving them for Ethan. He paid the price. He deserves the freedom. Not me. Not my son. Him." The video ended abruptly, as if she didn't have the strength to say more. I stared at the frozen frame of her face. Older, fragile, but stripped of the vanity she carried her whole life. And then, anger found me. Slow at first, then sharp, then blazing. 20 years I lived under the weight of someone else's lie. 20 years branded by a crime I didn't commit. 20 years as the villain in my own son's story. I realized something then. Something I hadn't let myself admit. I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself. I let her do it. I let her walk away. I let her rewrite the truth so she could stand in the light, while I lived in the dark. And Logan, he wasn't just her victim. He was mine too. I reached for the final letter, the one addressed simply, Ethan. I unfolded it with steadying breath. "You will know what to do. Tell the truth, or burn it. Either way." I finally found the courage to put it in your hands. My pulse quickened. She had left the choice to me. Behind me, the elevator chimed. I turned. Logan stood in the doorway of the study. His face was flushed with fury, his eyes wild, his chest rising and falling in quick, sharp breaths. He had come here for what he believed was rightfully his, but he walked in on the one thing he wasn't prepared for. The whole truth. "What do you think you're doing?" he hissed. "Going through my mother's private things? Using her death to make yourself look better?" His gaze dropped to the open safe, the files, the laptop, the journal, and I watched the exact second dread replaced anger. "Oh, no." His voice wavered. "What did she leave you?" A slow, cold realization gripped him. It wasn't money. It wasn't assets. It was something far more dangerous. Evidence. His lips parted in a whisper of panic. "Dad, what is all that?" I closed the journal gently. My heart beat steady now. "Everything," I said. "Everything your mother never told you." The room fell silent. And for the first time in 20 years, Logan looked afraid. For a long moment, Logan and I just stood there in the dim study, the open safe between us, like a wound neither of us knew how to close. The cold hallway light framed him in a pale outline, while I stood beside the evidence his mother left behind, evidence heavy enough to bend any man who wasn't ready for the truth. His breath shook. His shoulders tightened. I could see it happening in real time, the story he'd lived 20 years beginning to crack. He stepped in slowly, almost the way a child approaches a shadow he's not sure is real. "Dad, just tell me what this is." The fear in his voice was sharper than anger. I closed the safe and stood. Cassandra's journal rustled behind me, her handwriting exposed in the lamplight, like a confession she'd never had the courage to speak. "Everything you believed," I said quietly. "Everything you blamed me for. Your mother told the truth before she died. It's here." He swallowed hard. "I don't believe you." I didn't argue. I opened the laptop and played the video. When Cassandra appeared pale, frail, stripped of the armor she wore all her life, Logan stopped breathing. He stepped closer, drawn not by curiosity but by something older, something broken. And as she admitted everything, how she lied, how she hid the truth, how I carried the blame she couldn't bear, he didn't blink once. When the screen went dark, he let out a sound that didn't belong to a grown man. She said all that? I nodded. Why didn't she tell me? He whispered. Why didn't she tell anyone? Because she was scared, I said. Scared of losing you. Scared of losing the image she built. Scared of facing what she did. He stared at the floor. So she let me hate you. That's one way to put it. Silence settled again, thick, heavy. The kind that ages a room. Finally. What are you going to do with all this? I'm going to tell the truth, I said. Not to punish you. Not to destroy her legacy. But because I've been carrying something that never belonged to me. He flinched. If this gets out, people will think she was human, I said. She made mistakes. So have you. He closed his eyes. Everyone will know how I treated you. That's something you'll have to face. But instead of anger, I felt something shift in him, the boy he used to be showing through the man he had learned to perform. I don't know if I can fix this, he whispered. You don't have to fix 20 years tonight, I said. But you don't get to hide anymore. He nodded slowly. I told him the plan, the authorities, the regulators, the record correction, quiet justice, not public spectacle. And for the first time, he really listened. Dad, he said finally, voice shaking. I'm sorry. It was small, imperfect, but real. We left the penthouse not healed, not whole, but facing the same direction for the first time in decades. The night air was cold, and for the first time in 20 years, I felt light. Now I leave you with a question. Would you have forgiven them? Or would you have chosen justice? Tell me where you're listening from. Which city? Which corner of Canada or beyond? And if you want more true Canadian family stories, subscribe to Fractured Vengeance.